Some say that music is prophecy, a force that senses truth before they take shape in the material world. It doesn't just reflect change, it anticipates it. For this reason, musicians, even when they don't set out to challenge the establishment, are often seen as dangerous, disruptive, and subversive. Their history is inseparable from repression and surveillance. What cannot be denied is this: music holds power, and that power fuels both the fight for its free expression and the drive to suppress it. The question then is this: when faced with the threat of censorship and silence, how do musicians navigate their careers? And what do these choices cost them? I've been following musicians' journey as part of my research and listening to their stories. This is the story of how censored songs altered the cores of musicians and how music continues to prophesize.
其实蛮感动的。我当初做这首歌的时候，本身就觉得，那对我来说是一个任务嘛。真正记录在这个时代的是事件，那这首歌可以成为时代的配乐，我没有后悔过。可是有很多的中间的过程，很多很辛苦的地方。
全民占领主席台！民主的台湾！
The Sunflower Movement was the month-long occupation of the Taiwanese legislature in protest of a trade agreement that the government, which was the KMT, hoped to sign with China. This showed that young people refused to have closer political relations with China if it means compromising on the freedoms that Taiwan has today. And so the Sunflower Movement was this major generational moment in which many young people came of age politically. Movements have anthems, and that this has been a characteristic of movements in Asia. There are these iconic songs that emerge and come to represent the movement.
立法院的时候我也去参与，我是那第一天晚上翻进去的。
但我在那个停车场嘛。
然后后来有人冲进去的时候，我们就跟着冲。但那个当下真的蛮害怕，也蛮可怕的。
因为我记得就是有一群人被警察围，然后我就躺在地上去围警察这样子。
觉得318运动就是我没有到最后带给我的创伤很大，对不对？对不对？抱歉，你就讲这个对不对？
不要抱歉，你现在此刻的感受都是真实的。这件事情过了10年，它也不会改变。讲音乐，我会觉得随着时代的变化，好像应该会要有新的音乐去代表这一代的人的歌。
没有别的东西，就是它的象征意义很强。在那边唯一的意义就是给在场一点力量。
这么大的国家，容不下一个小乐团的一首歌带给他们某一种威胁，所以他们才有必要这样子去做这些封杀的动作嘛。对，那当然本质上一定是他们很怕民主的意识萌芽了。对，他们在像金曲奖，它是一个流行音乐，在整个华人世界来说是指标性的奖项。
最佳年度歌曲奖得奖的是 岛屿天光。
那他们当然把讯号切断是可以理解的，对。
Fire Extinguisher is not the first Taiwanese act affected by Chinese censorship. Decades earlier, Carissa Tang's intimate vocals were banned in post-cultural revolution China. Yet her songs still found their way in, making her a cultural icon.
National Anthem of the Republic of China.
In 2000, Ame Zhang, a Puyuma singer, was barred from China's airway after performing the national anthem at a presidential inauguration. Even Coca-Cola dropped her from a major campaign. In 2016, Ziyu, a 16-year-old K-pop singer, was pressured into a public apology for waving a Republic of China flag on a TV show. Her statement sparkled outrage in Taiwan.
去透过很多的讯息也好，或经济手段也好，他去鲸吞蚕食。那他的目标是要你消失，要你的主体性消失，然后他才有机会去掠夺这片土地。
There's a long history of studying and research censorship, going all the way back to ancient practices that restricted expressions for religious or political reasons. Today, we're in a world filled with content moderation and platform policies. The meaning and practice of censorship can become harder to notice. When censorship feels like it's everywhere, it risks becoming invisible or even meaningless. Some scholars argue that today's censorship has what they call a generative effect. In other words, censorship doesn't just restrict, it also creates. It produces new discourses shaping how we think, how we act, and even how we create.
One of the most important trends these days is the growth in self-censorship. Freemuse has been monitoring and documenting violation of artistic freedom for the last 25 years. And we see that the situation is getting worse and worse. And it's very scary what we see at the moment. You see very close connections when democracy and human rights are targeted on a larger scale. It's immediately affecting the situation for artistic freedom.
President Donald Trump is
the new chairman of the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts.
He was elected by...
What is happening in the United States is very similar to what has been happening in Hungary for the last 15 years.
What's the implication of that for musicians and artists?
Even in quite liberal democratic states, the pressure is increasing. So you have everything from internet trolls that are threatening and harassing artists, but also when authorities are threatening and banning and restricting the possibility of being creative, is that people are getting afraid.
While statistics and reports show that Taiwan is a nation of various freedoms, musicians face many unspoken struggles when addressing political and social issues. This is the story of navigating a career, balancing dreams with the realities of censorship. Landing their first big contracts with a Taiwanese label was thrilling until management asked them to remove marriage equality sticker from their instrument. "We're about to take photos," they said. These signs could be controversial in certain markets. A Chinese promoter offered a major opportunity, a tour in China. The fee offered was 4 times more than the fee in Taiwan. Before applying for performance approval, the promoter requested they scrub 2 years of social media history, removing anything sensitive, including support for Hong Kong or Taiwan. Contracts included clauses stating that any political expression causing economic loss would result in fines up to 10 times the fee. Navigating China required a local phone number and a bank account for mobile payments. Gigs paid more than what they earned in Taiwan, but strict limits hindered sending money home. One musician who supported Taiwan's Sunflower movement described feeling relief when returning to Taiwan. I wanted to chant for freedom, even as the plane was taxiing. In Taiwan, musicians still faced Chinese Communist Party media influence. Some industry workers noted how vocal bands about independence might face fewer opportunities, even domestically. Musicians avoided endangering local collaborators in China, knowing the risk those individuals faced. Agreeing to an interview about censorship, one musician insisted all phones be switched to airplane mode. You just have to assume they can all hear.
We have United Nations treaties that are made to protect artistic freedom. I think it's a big injustice that Taiwan is kept out of the UN. And I think that makes it even more important that artists in Taiwan should connect to international organizations to get support. And you see that the creativity among Taiwanese artists gives inspiration to artists around the globe. And the more they are connecting and communicating and supported, they will stand stronger.
The system of control is subtle but deeply ingrained. For me, this is one of the main reasons I've undertaken the research and why I'm making the film. I want musicians to know that they're not alone. What they're navigating isn't just ordinary. It's a very complex, deeply compromised version of freedom. Music is always political. Its sound, its production, its meaning. For years, some believed Taiwan's music was more Chinese than China's, reflecting its complex history. After the Chinese Civil War, the Republic of China retreated to Taiwan, while the People's Republic of China ruled the mainland. Both claimed legitimacy, and Beijing continues to pressure the world to recognize its rule over Taiwan. But Taiwan has changed. Since democratization, more people embrace a distinct Taiwanese identity, with artists shaping its cultural voice. Yet, through it all, music transcends borders, shifting, adapting, and evolving, despite the politics that seek to contain it.
The majority Han population in Taiwan came from China, and they brought their music with them. Over the years, those melodies further develop, so they start becoming something unique to Taiwan. And then Taiwanese opera ends up going back to China and being influential there. Taiwan-based Peking opera actors would sometimes get a hold of things from China when they're not supposed to, when it's still illegal, when contact was forbidden. Any kind of contact that happened went through Hong Kong and, through videotapes or cassette tapes. Contact wasn't allowed to take place until 1987. The ways of performing Peking opera in China changed, and you could hear that influence very clearly.
As people migrate, so does music. Taiwan's Mandopop gained influence in China since the 1970s, slipping into an opposing ideological system. Many Taiwanese artists found audiences there. One scholar calls this a counter-invasion, Taiwan's music flowing into the PRC. But deeper market ties brings greater political risk.
There's long been this concern about Taiwanese businessmen going to China, for example, how tightly knit the Taiwanese and Chinese economies are. But this is also the case for entertainers who often go to the much larger Chinese market and then become tied to China this way. And that compels them to make political statements that are supportive of the Chinese Communist Party's views on Taiwan, because that's a way to maintain access to the market and avoid accusations of disloyalty. So very recently, there's a lot of discussion of Mayday, which was previously seen as pro-Taiwan identity. They start off as an indie band singing in Taiwanese Hokkien and then drifted towards more mainstream stylings. It was still surprising for many people that Mayday eventually pivoted to the Chinese market, saying that we are all Chinese.
是的，我们中国人嘛，来北京一定是烤鸭的，还要吃什么呢？
我们中国男生最热情了，对吧？今天的确是有近100位的台湾演艺人员，在以各种方式表达对两岸关系、对中华儿女身份认同的态度。
在别人的屋檐下，我们的文化工作者讲什么内容固然是一回事，但更重要的是，他们内心想的是什么。
刚刚有朋友问我说，对此行有没有什么心得？我就是一句话，就是用交流来化解更多这个没有交流所产生的误会。
两岸的用语就不一样嘛，那他也没有恶意，而且重点是他是在祝福跟称赞我们台湾队拿到世界冠军，结果我们的民进党的政客却去霸凌他，说他不应该讲中国台北。
所以我觉得这个就艺术层面来讲，这种创作的交流是很重要的。如果没有两岸音乐的这种交流的话，那这种文化的激荡跟共振，它都不会产生。那对我来讲，中华民国就是中国。那我讲我是中国人，我的思想跟我的这个精神上没有任何负担。所以如果就要看每个艺人的自己的想法。
我们到大陆巡演应该是2016年的事情，那我们也蛮幸运，因为我们过去的专辑呢都是纯演奏，所以在中国大陆演出的时候还没有遇到这样子相对的问题。
就政治对于台湾人来说，真的是不管是一面滤镜也好，或者什么，它永远都会摆在非常非常的前面。那你如果不去讨论这件事情的话，其实是是有点不负责任，然后也是有点就是好像掩耳盗铃那样的感觉的。
那我觉得这时候音乐会是一个很重要的媒介，那我会做的事情也就只有用音乐。
Artist 要生存，就必须有生存的方式，每个人生存的方式不同。
如果可以的话，我其实就像刚刚说，我希望台湾的音乐能够更加多元，就是它跟社会现象或者是社会议题的连接都可以更加的多元。
I mean, music is the language for all people, right? But if you ask me if I want to tour in China, for now the answer is no. I don't want to be the accomplice of authoritarianism. It's as simple as this.
包括我们自己乐团，或者是如果我建议爵士乐手或者音乐家能够不碰就不要碰，对，除非有一天我们被迫去做这个表态，那又是另当别论，又另外一回事了。好，
就是执政者想要掌控人的身体，人怎么使用身体的方式嘛。那如果是那种我们用那个社会学术语那种规训我们的人民的身体，这种人在表达情感有很多不一样的方式，而戒严或者是言论审查，那恰好就是对于这些不同的表达情感的方式的限制。对啊，我觉得音乐不应该被这些东西限制。对，只要它没有伤害人。
对于表态或是站出来在荧光幕面前曝光的人，其实非常少，因为大家都是为了害怕自己的职业发展，所以我才在网络上号召，请乐手，这么多音乐家愿意出来，我其实说是感动。
The Bluebird movement emerged in May 2024 as a mass protest against controversial parliamentary reforms pushed by Taiwan's opposition-led Legislation Yuan. Echoing the 2014 Sunflower Movement, protesters saw these reforms as a direct threat to Taiwan's democracy, with fears of growing Chinese influence. The movement's name, drawn from Qingdao East Road, near Parliament, became a symbol of resistance, while the Formosan blue magpie, an endangered native bird, came to represent Taiwan's fragile democracy. As the protest grew, so did the sound of music. Some came to be known as Bluebird troubadours,
好，我们再试试那个 Islands 岛屿天光的1，这边是就是天光的时候，太阳正要出来的时候，可以再温柔一点。1、2、3。318运动对我留下了蛮大的一个记忆吧，就是很不想演这首曲子，真的很不想演，不是因为这首曲子不好听，或是因为这首曲子，反而是因为这首曲子跟我的情感连接太重。做行政的时候，你就会发现，那个来自中国的审查制度，其实并不是像是我们新闻里面常常看到的广电总局那种，你不能做什么戏，你不能写什么歌的那种审查方式。它是一个非常非常优美，而且非常细节的，藏在细节里面的审查方式。甚至这些审查方式有时候会被不管是发行商或是被乐手自己内化了。不管是你在哪一个职涯阶段上面都可能会有。然后，尤其是职涯阶段比较成熟的老师们，他们可能考虑的事情不再是自己的政治立场而已，他们可能要考虑学校的交流状况。让我回到10年前的感觉，
因为我们10年前都来过，
然后现在还要再走来一次，对。
而且我觉得音乐圈关心社会的人很多。可是大家很少有机会用自己的乐器来，因为我觉得大家都会希望用自己的专业来奉献啊，对啊，
就是终于有一个我可以编我想要奉献给台湾民主的东西了。
应该大家不会很看好我们可以存活下来，但是我们很努力的存活下来，只是希望告诉大家说，我们的这种坦然跟抬头挺胸，好像应该蛮多人羡慕的。因为我们一直在玩各种不同的商业模式，其实也玩得蛮开心的。除此之外的话，就是今年开了新的场馆。那你在规模延伸的过程当中，代表的应该是有更多元、更不一样的声音，更多实验性的东西被市场所接纳，而且接纳这些东西的人口基数变高。那这样的前提之下，其实乐听人也都会习惯各种不一样面向或不一样特质、不一样风格的音乐呈现。你在创作的自由度上面也会相对的没有那么多的自我设限。
对，我觉得只要真的是台湾够强壮的话，大家都有这个意识的话，就没有人会在意中国的想法了。
对，因为有问题的是政府，不是那里的人民。
对，所以我们只是以我们的立场，我们当然也是很希望说，是不是大家可以多看看台湾？
觉得把自身强大也是一个很重要的部分。
当你有一定的程度的歌迷群众的时候，是不是能够继续跟我们一起，然后把台湾弄得更强壮一点？对。
那些跟我们不一样的，会试图想要撕裂我们，我们只要心里知道，我们爱着台湾这片土地，它就会更好，它就会永远存在。谢谢你们。
Music is an idea, a symbol, an experience, a force that is deeply human. It could also be a product shaped by the realities of survival. Musicians strive to express their beliefs, but they must also navigate a world where censorship, driven by the fear of music's power, is as old as music itself. Yet, musicians persist. In Taiwan and beyond, they continue to sing, to speak, breaking boundaries and shaping generations. Through their struggle, we see that music is not just sound. It is prophecy. It is action. It is participation. It is resistance.